Hello, this is Little Green Ghouls, and welcome to Give Yourself Goosebumps, where, reader beware, you choose the scare. This week, I'm excited to visit The Deadly Experiments of Dr. Eeek. This story takes us through a series of lab experiments gone wrong. Well, that's a generous interpretation. It's more like Stine takes us on a tour of half-assed ideas that's full of wasted potential. If you like German Shepherds, this is the book for you. Once again, there's over 25 different endings to explore in this one, so let's read the blurb on the back and get started. He's out to take over your life. Top secret and dangerous. That's what your mom, a famous scientist, calls the research she's been doing at the labs of Dr. Eeek. You're dying to know what it's all about. Then, one day, you get lost in the labs. Before you know it, you've become a human guinea pig in Dr. Eek's deadly experiments. If you choose one lab, you meet a dog wearing sneakers. He's half dog, half kid, and now he's after you. If you choose another lab, you get lost in a maze that just happens to be home of an enormous rat. The choice is yours in this Goosebumps adventure that's packed with over 20 super spooky endings. Okay, now let's start this summary. The book opens with us right in the heat of the plot. We're with our friend Sam inside Dr. Eek's office, looking for our mom who's a researcher. A receptionist seems to doubt that our mom actually works here, since Dr. Eek is highly secretive, and the entire office seems to be basically abandoned. It's 5:30, so the receptionist grabs her bag and leaves us all alone in the waiting room. Sam is gross and spots a glass of clear liquid at the receptionist's desk, and decides to just chug the whole thing. Who would do this? Just drink some random person's drink? Ya nasty. Sam starts clutching at his throat, and we think he's about to die, but this is just a fake out and it was water. We're then given our first choice of the book: sit in the reception area and patiently wait for our mother, or head further into this laboratory to take a look around. I like seeing the dullest option first at the start of these books, so we're gonna be good and just wait patiently. This results in us waiting 30 more minutes before a woman named Vanessa emerges from the hallway and asks if we're here for the raster experiment. The experiment only takes 20 minutes and it pays $50, so we're given the choice to stay put or go do this experiment real quick. Stine has decided to bypass the non-choice in this book, so we're just gonna get started with these experiments. Vanessa takes us to a dark room where we get our first look at Dr. Eek, who is wearing his lab coat backwards, and it looks like one of his eyes has been stapled on. I'm trying to picture what this looks like, but Stine doesn't really elaborate much, other than he looks squinty. Dr. Eek concludes that we're not right for the raster experiment, but has something else in mind. So now we're given the choice to chicken out, or continue on with this new experiment. I'm ready for something to happen, so we're gonna go along with Dr. Eek. This doesn't go where I thought it would, and we meet our first ending rather abruptly. Dr. Eek leads us into a restroom with giant sinks and toilets and tells us to start scrubbing. Then a 12-foot kid enters the room and warns us to avoid the raster experiment in our very first ending. So I guess we'll go back and chicken out from this experiment. We go to leave, but Sam refuses, so we head out into the hallway alone. We then hear a sudden scream and have to decide whether we thought it was Sam and run back to rescue him, or check a different room. We'll stick with what we know for now and check back on Sam. We find Sam blindfolded and doing random taste testing, where he's offered cinnamon potato chips, moldy hay, and sugar-coated ping pong balls. Apparently, we're down to try this for $50, but Dr. Eek says this experiment is over, but he'd be happy to put us both in his canine lab. We are then marched into an operating room and handed gowns to change into. This proves to be too much and we decide to take off running. Dr. Eek shouts for us to stop and wants to know who we actually are, and we're given the choice to stop and tell him, or keep running. I think running is the best option at this point, which results in us returning to the waiting room, where a giant German Shepherd is blocking the exit. It also has our mom's shoe in its mouth, so we decide to return to the canine labs to see if she needs rescuing. Inside the lab, we spot our mom's other shoe outside a door labeled Canine Maze, and open it to find her surrounded by 5 snarling German Shepherds. We try to scare the dogs off, but she just laughs and pulls out a whistle, because it turns out these are all part of her experiment. We walk closer and notice that she has a mole on her right cheek instead of her left cheek, and conclude she must be some sort of clone and back away from her. This results in us stumbling out of the lab into our actual mom, who's like, "Congratulations, you figured it out." And we learn she's been experimenting with holograms. We then meet our second ending, where we have a great time with our mom making holograms of ourselves and sending them out all over the building. I guess we can go back to where we were given the choice to tell Dr. Eek who we actually are, or just keep running. And this time, we'll tell him we're looking for our mom. When Dr. Eek finds out who our mom is, he just laughs and says he doubts we'll ever see our mother again. However, he says this because apparently we're in the wrong laboratory and she doesn't even work here. He then says the only way for us to get out is through the canine maze, but offers us a Goosebumps question first, featuring My Hairiest Adventure. This one asks, what was Larry holding when he first noticed black hair growing on the back of his hands, and we're given the choice, toothbrush or hairbrush? It's clearly a toothbrush, but let's see real quick what happens if we're wrong and go with hairbrush. This results in us begging to not go into the canine maze, but Sam is fine with it and stays behind. We're then sent into a room waist deep with feathers. Things get real weird, and Dr. Eek tells us to take off our socks and shoes, and right away the feathers feel ticklish. Dr. Eek then seals the door, and suddenly 40 chimpanzees race into the room and start tickling us with feathers, until we die in our third ending. This means we'll go back and get the question right with toothbrush. Dr. Eek is basically like, yep, that's right. Now get into that canine maze anyways, and watch out for dogs before locking us inside the maze. We wander around for a bit before hitting a fork in the maze, where we have to choose left or straight. We'll go straight because why not? This results in us getting into a hallway that grows narrower the further down we go, and the smell of dogs gets stronger. We're given the choice to keep going forward or head back to the fork in the road, and I'd prefer to finish what we started and continue onwards. It eventually gets so narrow that we have to figure out who's going to walk ahead first. We are then prompted to flip a coin, where heads we go first, tails Sam goes first. Luckily, I got heads, so we're going first. We end up sliding sideways down this hall until we reach a room containing a giant bubblegum machine, except instead of bubblegum, it's full of strange brown balls. We turn the knob, and Sam happily gobbles up the strange brown snack and says he thinks it might be granola. We try a bite and comment that it tastes like dog food. We're then given the choice to keep eating or stop. Well, why the fuck would I keep eating? So we're gonna stop. This leads to our fourth ending because although we stop, Sam keeps eating until he suddenly transforms into a vicious German Shepherd and kills us. I guess we'll now see what happens if we keep eating dog food balls. It's really not much of a mystery since we watched Sam turn into a dog, so surprise, we turn into a German Shepherd too. We then hear a pack of dogs coming our way and are given the choice to prepare to fight or play dead. Let's play dead because why get into a dog fight if we don't have to? Shocker, this passive approach fails and the dogs can smell the human blood in us in our fifth ending, where we get mauled to death. So we're going to go back and go on the offense this time. We managed to scare off all the other dogs, and we're given the choice to follow the dogs around the maze, or head back out on our own. I feel like it makes more sense to follow the dogs, so that's what we're going to do. This eventually leads to us to an emergency exit with a button high off the ground. Stine then says if we're taller than 4'3", go to one page, if we're shorter, go to another. I am taller than 4'3", so we successfully hit the button with our dog nose. The door opens, revealing a staircase where we can smell our mom's perfume. We find her, but she assumes we're just lab dogs and ends up adopting us. This results in our sixth ending, where, although she's lost her child, our mom gets filthy rich by making us perform on stage since we're an exceptionally smart dog after all. I'm curious to see what would happen if we're under 4'3". Turns out, not much. We can't reach the button and feel doomed to wandering this maze for all eternity in our seventh ending, where we make peace with the fact that we're a dog and hope to one day maul Dr. Eek in revenge. Okay, now we'll go back and instead of wandering the maze with our fellow dogs, we'll head out on our own. We find our way back to the maze entrance and decide just to wait until somebody opens the door again. Dr. Eek appears a few hours later and we spring into attack mode. He eventually realizes we're the kid from earlier and offers to give us a pill he thinks will change us back, so we're given the choice to take the pill or keep on attacking him. I'm gonna keep biting him. We can always try the pill after he's dead. Stine decides to make this a non-choice by saying we can't just keep biting Dr. Eek forever, and we reluctantly take the pill. This ends up not being so bad as we transform back into a kid in our eighth ending, where we tell Dr. Eek to let us go so we can turn him into the police, and we use Sam in dog form to threaten him. I think at this point we'll need to go back to where we flipped a coin to see what would happen if Sam goes first in the narrowing hallway. This results in us noticing a crack in the wall as we're scooting along. We press a button within and reveal a dark room. We wander inside and quickly meet our ninth ending, where we are suddenly attacked by a giant rat. At least it wasn't a German Shepherd. We'll now go back one step further, where we were given the choice to continue down this narrowing hallway, or turn back to the fork in the road, and this time we're going to go back to the fork. This causes us to soon be surrounded by German Shepherds on all sides, and we're given a chance. If we've picked up a silver whistle, we can go to one page. If not, we go to another. Sadly for us, we haven't, so we meet our 10th ending, where the dogs don't eat us, they just keep us trapped in this position forever until we die. Okay, I'm just going to use this moment to express how lame this book has been so far. We have a mad scientist setup, and this is the best Stine can come up with. German Shepherd everything. At this point, we have to go pretty far back to where we heard a scream outside the room we left Sam in, and had to decide to race back in or check a different room. And this time, we're going to check a different room. We open one room and spot a large pile of green goo on a table, and decide to nope on out of there. The next room is just a closet, but the third door we check is an operating room with a mysterious lumpy object under a stained hospital sheet. We get closer and spot a kid's sneaker poking out from under the sheet and start to feel dizzy. We're then given the choice, look under the sheet or lay down for a second. I want to see, so we're lifting up the sheet. Under the sheet, we find a boy who's half human, half German Shepherd. Because Stine can't get enough of the dog stuff, the boy begs for our help, but we hear footsteps coming down the hall and are given two options to hide. We can either go underneath the operating table or race into Dr. Eek's office. I'm going under the operating table so we can see what's happening better, but this ends up being the wrong choice. Dr. Eek catches us and forces us to drink a strange purple liquid. When we wake back up, we meet our 11th ending where we're part human, part dog, and now have a basketball for a head. We'll now see what happens if we hide in the office. The dog boy tosses us a silver whistle and tells us to run, not hide. And we have to decide whether to take the dog boy's advice and run, or just keep trying to hide. We'll ignore dog boy's advice for now, because who is he to boss us around? This leads to us regretting our decision as we're cornered in the office and Stine gives us a new style of choice. So all you have to do is prove one of the following. A, you'll break out in hives if you read the words "the" and one more time in the next 5 minutes. B, you know the difference between creepy, spooky, and scary, and can spell all three correctly. C, between you and your best friend, you've read every single Goosebumps book in existence, and you haven't had nightmares once. If you can honestly claim A, B, or C, congratulations, you get to start again, and make a better choice, on page 17. Hint, help Sam this time. If not, turn to page 104. Since we've already helped Sam on page 17, we'll see what happens if we can't claim any of these three things. Turns out, even less than usual happens in this one, where we meet at 12th ending, where Stine just ends it. Hey, let's face it, you tried to worm your way out of things, but you just weren't wormy enough, in the end. I guess we should go back and listen to the dog boy's advice, and run away this time versus hiding. We race out into the hallway and decided we need to run back and grab Sam. When we enter the room we last saw him, all that's left is a trail of gum wrappers leading to an operating room, where Sam is strapped to a table with wires connecting him to a jar of pickles. We grab the wires off of Sam and start to run, but then Dr. Eek offers us a riddle for our freedom. This just ends up being the question about my hairiest adventure, so we'll consider this a dead end. Now that we have the dog whistle, I guess we can go back to the pathway where we had to have the dog whistle to proceed. We're right back to being cornered by German Shepherds, and we blow the whistle, nothing happens. Because I guess in this story, we're unfamiliar with the concept of dog whistles. The dogs all sit down eventually, and we're able to make our way to the emergency exit in the maze. We find our mom once again, but this time we're in human form. She offers to take us to the movies in our 13th ending, but we just want to go home and watch TV with pizza. We'll now need to head back to the moment where we had the option to look under the strange stained hospital seat, or lay down and rest first, and I guess this time we're just gonna lay on the floor. This leads to our 14th and stupid ending. Well, it's not like any of these endings have been home runs, but this time we end up falling asleep on the ground. We wake up in our own bed and find out that it's all been a dream, and our mom tells us we should come tour her new laboratory later. We now need to go back to where Vanessa first offered us to try the raster experiment, and this time we'll decline. She rolls her eyes and goes to fetch Dr. Eek, who we inform we're looking for our mother. He then takes us to a room labeled G-Lab, where we find a large green blob sitting on a table. It looks like a mixture of silly putty and minty toothpaste, and I can only hope this ends up being monster blood. Dr. Eek tosses it to us, but Sam intercepts it. He is soon struggling to get the slime off himself as it appears to be growing in his arms. We try to help Sam pull it off, but just end up getting tangled up in the goo with him. The slime starts to cling to our throat when Dr. Eek reappears and gives us three choices. We can cooperate with Dr. Eek and do the raster experiment, rub goo on Dr. Eek, or just run away covered in goo. Let's just run like mad this time. Maybe it'll lead to some more exciting German Shepherd action. We find ourselves back in the lobby and manage to get into an elevator where we can see our reflection that the goo has engulfed our entire upper body and head, yet we can still see and breathe. Our mom enters the elevators in our 15th ending where she starts shrieking about aliens, and we dread what the US military is going to do when they find us next. I guess we'll now return to the G-Lab, and this time we're going to smear goo on Dr. Eek. He is completely unfazed when the slime gets on his hands, and then proceeds to pull his skin off. Except not really, he's just wearing flesh-colored gloves and apparently a mask. Dr. Eek pulls off his mask, and we recognize him as Herbert Wimpelmeyer, a crazy scientist who worked with our mom previously, but was fired for being nuts. He informs us we went to the wrong lab, and our mom was on a different floor, and we only have 2 minutes before the goo smothers us. We're then given the choice, smear goo on Herbert's real face, or search the lab for an antidote. Let's rub goo on his face, why not? It turns out he's actually wearing yet another mask in our 16th ending, where our 2 minutes are up and we suffocate. This means we'll just need to search the lab for the antidote instead, We end up finding a jar of red slime in one of the drawers and start eating it, only to learn that it's strawberry jam and we're allergic to strawberries, so we break out in hives. Sam then springs into action and decides to rub slime on Dr. Eek, and this time he doesn't pull off a mask and instead races out of the room heading for an antidote. We follow him into a small booth and it starts to fill with white smoke. The slime dissolves off of all of us and then everything goes pitch black. Dr. Eek is like, oops, I forgot to pay the electric bill, and now we're all sealed inside this booth in our 17th ending where we all suffocate. There's a lot of suffocation in this one. Now we'll head back to where we had the 3 choices and we'll cooperate with Dr. Eek this time and do the raster experiment. Dr. Eek waves an electric wand over us, causing the goo all to fall on the floor, and we follow him into the next room. We're then told to sit into 2 chairs with helmets that sort of look like some sort of virtual reality game. We notice that there's straps on the chairs and are given 2 choices, run away or sit down in the chairs. I'm tired of all this running around, so we're going to sit in the chairs. Once we're strapped in, we're soon experiencing a virtual island paradise and having a great time. We can't get over how real everything feels, and then we're startled by a Komodo dragon. We have to decide to freeze in place or run away from the lizard. Freezing in place just leads to our 18th ending because the Komodo dragon happily devours us, even though it's supposed to be virtual reality. We'll try running instead this time, because Lord knows we haven't run around enough in this book so far. We manage to escape the Komodo dragon, and Dr. Eek removes the virtual reality helmet. We notice that we're covered in scratches from the jungle, and look over at Sam, who seems to be clutching his throat. Dr. Eek offers to let us go, or we can return to the game to save Sam. Let's be dicks and ditch Sam. We race out into the reception area to look for help, but find that the doors have been locked. We try calling our mom's work number on the receptionist's phone, but she doesn't answer. We then call a pizza place because it's the only other number we have memorized. What about 911? The pizza place answers and says they'll send over the usual pizza order and hang up quickly. We notice the sprinkler system overhead and are given the choice: try to set off the sprinklers to send the fire department, or run back into the lab to try to help Sam ourselves. I'm committed to ignoring Sam for now, so we're going to set off the sprinklers. We grab a lamp and hold it against the heat-sensitive sprinkler head, which causes it to start gushing water. This ends up being a trap because the water comes out at an astronomical rate and the room is airtight. We're soon forced to hold our breath as the room fills with water, but then the pizza delivery guy opens the office door, releasing all the water. He explains that the pizza shop is on the first floor and Dr. Eek orders nightly, so they have a key for his office. We then spot our mom and inform her of Sam's situation. She calls the police and is able to unplug Sam from the virtual reality game in our 19th ending, where we all live happily ever after. I think my happy ending right now would just be finishing this fucking book. Okay, instead of activating the sprinklers, let's go back and help Sam ourselves this time. Dr. Eek straps us back in, and we find Sam currently underwater battling 2 giant octopuses. We help Sam fight off the creatures and then return to the land to dry off. Dr. Eek then appears, and we realize now is our chance to get him, since he's also inside the game. We go to punch him, but he grabs our right wrist. We're then given the paths. If you're right-handed, go to one page. If you're left-handed, go to another. I'm right-handed, so this results in Dr. Eek dragging us into a mirrored room, where he smacks our red button. There's a flash of light, and suddenly we've been transformed into a copy of Dr. Eek. He gleefully scampers away, and says good luck because the government has been after him. We tell ourselves it's only virtual reality, but when the game ends, we hop out of the chair and Sam starts screaming, because now we really do look like Dr. Eek. Sam calls the cops in our 20th ending, and we're arrested and hauled away for experimenting on children. We'll now see what happens if we're lefties. This time, we punch Dr. Eek right in the nose and make our escape towards the elevators. We head to the 18th floor and see nothingness, because Dr. Eek never programmed this part of the game. Sam says he can fix that and hops on a computer in the lab and programs the 18th floor with access to our mom and the police. We then head to the 18th floor, find our mom, and call 911. Suddenly, the virtual reality game ends and we're face to face with our mom in our 21st ending, because somehow programming the game from inside the game changed reality. If you say so. Now we'll jump back to where we were first offered to try the virtual reality game, or run away, and this time we're just going to run away. We have 2 immediate choices: go to the waiting room on the right, or just go left. Going to the waiting room is the wrong choice, ends up being our 22nd ending, because we actually didn't know where we were going, and we run straight into a gorilla vampire bat hybrid monster that promptly tears us apart. So we better go back and go left, which actually leads to the waiting room. We hear footsteps coming and make plans to ambush whoever it is. We stand on top of a chair, wielding the receptionist's phone as a weapon, but when Vanessa walks in, we manage to fall out of the chair and knock ourselves out. When we regain consciousness, Vanessa pulls out a can of sleeping spray, deadly dust of nightfall, and sprays Sam and us right in the face in our 23rd ending, as we reflect on how we probably should have used that phone to call 911. At this point, we have to go back to our very first choice of the book, where we decided to wait for our mom versus wandering around to look for her. We come across a lounge with a vending machine, and as we're buying snacks, a hand grabs us by the shoulder. When we turn around, we're face to face with a giant chimpanzee. He motions for us to get him a candy bar, which we do. Then the chimp wants us to follow him, and we're given the choice to return to the waiting room or follow the giant chimp. The chimpanzee is clearly more exciting, so we're gonna go there first. We follow him into a laboratory where we meet Dr. Yarzik and tell him we're looking for our mom. He asks if we want to see one of the experiments he's been working on with Oscar the chimp. We wander over to a room where we can see dozens of chimps playing checkers, video games, reading books, and all sorts of other human things. He offers to let us get a closer look, and we have to decide whether we want to head on in or decline. We're going in. The moment we walk into the room, all the chimpanzees go silent, and Oscar slams the door, locking us in. We then watch through the window as Oscar gives Dr. Yarzik a treat and stuffs him into a cage. Across the room, we notice a whole wall of cages full of scientists in our 24th ending, as it becomes clear that we're about to be experimented on by Oscar and his fellow chimpanzees. We're reaching the end here, so let's go see what happens if we decline heading into the monkey room. Dr. Yarzik says that's okay, come back anytime, and telephones our mom. We then learn Oscar is coming home with us. This leads to a bizarre, and probably my favorite ending so far, where Oscar trashes the house. That is, until Tarzan shows up and takes him away in our 25th ending. What? This means we still need to go back and see what happens if we never follow Oscar further into the building and instead return to the waiting room. The front door swings open and our mom picks us up in an uneventful ending, where Stine chastises us for lacking a sense of adventure in our 26th and final ending. Well, that's it. All 26 endings are fully explored. I thought this one kinda sucked. It felt very repetitive, and I expected more creativity, considering the endless possibilities of a mad scientist laboratory. I also thought the fixation on German Shepherds was weird. Next week, we're back on Fear Street, but switching it up for October. I'm going to start the cheerleader series, since I've been curious about these ones since I started, and I don't want to wait. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the deadly experiments of Dr. Eeek. What was your favorite storyline? Do you like German Shepherds? Why didn't we see more of the gorilla vampire bat hybrid? Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching, and make sure you subscribe for
the pride, the love,